Check.
I don't really know about that. We both, there were other people that didn't like the fact that we were, we didn't, either one of us, I didn't think it should have ended that way, and I certainly didn't feel like it should. And, we just kind of phased into it. He lived for quite a few years in the same building I lived in down here in Florida. So, we would see each other, and, we started going, let's go to lunch. I said, all right. So we go out there, and 10 minutes after we're out there, we're talking about the same thing we always talked about, and this football and this guy and that team and this draft, and, because that's what he is. He's a football guy. And, I liked his father, had a good relationship with his father. And, hey, he's done a great job. A remarkable job is the word. Remarkable. And I really am happy for him.
When Deflategate happened, and I have to admit, I've known you a long time. We've talked a lot of football. I mean, you've spoken really softly and slowly, and not used big words, so you wouldn't get too far ahead of me. But when that thing happened, I called you right away, and you gave me a tutorial about what you guys used to do as soon as you got those footballs.
Well, that was before we had rules and regulations. There wasn't any. Right. We tried to make the footballs quarterback friendly. When you get those footballs out of the plastic bags, they've got a slip surface. Mike, every quarterback in the division was doing the same thing. They all wanted good footballs. So if I would see Randall Cunningham in warm-ups in Philadelphia, I'd say, Randall, we're all set, Coach. That's what would happen. And we come to New York, he'd look at me and say, don't worry, everything's fine, man. So, it's when they started bringing their own footballs, which we didn't have that when I was coaching. When they started bringing their own footballs to the game, that's when things got a little more dicey. Because in when I was starting out, the team provided the footballs, the home team. And so everybody's using the same. Well, Randall Cunningham and Troy Aikman, and they want good footballs to throw too. They're not we're not the only ones that want good football. So that's what would happen. Then the league started getting, we're going to use this, we're going to do that. You can't do this, you can't do that. That's what happened.
Now you're listening to the Mike Lupica Podcast, and Mike's talking with Hall of Fame football coach Bill Parcells. More with Bill right after this from Geico.
Okay, this is a 30-second commercial, and I'm going to throw a lot of numbers at you, but stay with me. In just 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more on car insurance. The company has been offering great rates and great service for over 75 years. Geico didn't come along just when they started doing these awesome television commercials. And anytime you need help, you speak to one of their trained specialists 24/7. The company is Geico. Go to geico.com today. Sorry for all the numbers. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm out of here. When you took over a 2-14 team in New England, went to the Super Bowl. You took over a 1-15 team with the Jets and had the lead at halftime in Denver in the AFC Championship game. And so when you look back, and I know this is like asking you to pick your favorite daughter, okay? So I understand it's a bit of a loaded question. First Super Bowl with the Giants, the second one in Tampa, but there's got to be almost as much pride as doing what you did with those two reclamation jobs in New England and then with the Jets.
Well, that loss in Denver is the worst. Probably my worst loss.
Oh, it is.
I think about that game, and we had some turnovers there, and people that never turned the ball over, and Mike, you don't really get caught up in that stuff. You try to institute a program. They use the word change the culture. It's develop your own method of coaching and teaching your players what allows them to win and what causes them to lose. That really is what the culture change is about, and how you instruct them and teach them to, and I'm not using this word in the literal sense, how you teach them to behave in certain situations is a reflection on good coaching. If they respond and understand, they use the term now all the time, situational football. Well, we were using that term 30 years ago. You guys need to understand this part of the field. You need to understand what we're trying to accomplish when we get the ball backed up. You need to understand what we're trying to do when we do. And I spend a lot of time myself in these kinds of situations and instructing the player on them during training camp. And then periodically during the season, we would have a whole review, like on a Friday afternoon, of all these things. And I would call out the players and have them give me the proper reaction to what we were going to do. Okay, fellas, what am I going to do now? Here's the situation. So I didn't want them to be surprised by any decision I made. I did not want a reactionary football team to my decision. I wanted them an anticipating team that had been through this situation and could readily predict what I was going to do. And we would rehearse those things, and they would understand them, and they would put them in play when the time came. Not always perfectly, but that's the best part of coaching right there. When you teach them something and you practice it for 3 years and it never comes up in the game, but when it does, they're ready for it. And that happened 2 or 3 times to me. They'd say to me on a Friday, "Right, we got to practice this again. We know this." But it never had come up. Well, it came up in the AFC Championship with the Patriots, and we wound up getting 3 points out of it out of the half, at the halftime. So that gives you credibility as a coach, and it gives your team a sense that they're prepared.
Coach, that was my favorite part of for all the elements that went into Malcolm Butler making that interception in the Super Bowl. I love finding out afterwards that when he saw that formation, they had talked about it on Friday at practice.
Sure. That's coaching. That's a red zone staple for Seattle. We got to understand what the red zone staples are, and we've got to be ready to defend them. And you don't have much time to decide because the ball's coming out very quickly. Tremendous play by Butler. One of the great plays in history.
One of the great defensive players. We're talking to Bill Parcells. All right, I've kept you longer than I said, but you know I lie. Okay, you say that was the toughest defeat in Denver that day. Is there a difference between that and your greatest regret? Is there one regret you have across your coaching career?
Yeah, I've said it publicly. I think leaving New England was really, I had a young team there. You think about it now. I had Curtis Martin, I had Terry Glenn, I had Ben Coates, I had Drew Bledsoe, Willie McGinnis, Teddy Bruschi, Ted Johnson, Ty Law, Lawyer Malloy, Adam Vinatieri, Troy Brown, and they were all young. Bruce Armstrong, probably one of the 2 best tackles I ever had. They were all young, and that was a hard time for me. And retrospectively, I think both myself, and I'm not speaking for Kraft, I think we've done things differently retrospectively if we had a chance to do it again. I know we've both talked about that. So,
after the Cowboys, was there one more time when you almost came back to coach?
No, I don't think so. I have been offered a couple jobs to consider, really, honestly, and that one reasonably just a couple of years ago. But, Mike, I used to tell the players, you got to know where you are in this world. You got to know what you are. And until you really identify that as a player, you're not going to maximize. So it holds true for people, too. Life goes on. It's a young man's game. I'm a guy that needs action. Now, football represented the consummate in action. Now I have horse racing, competitive golf, and the stock market. And that's all the action I need.
And for all the famous quotes that I have either heard from you or attributed to you, you know that nothing you ever said was more meaningful to anybody than what you said about my wife one time. Isn't that true, Coach?
Yes, it is true. You over-married quite a bit.
We had dinner in Jupiter.
I don't know how you did that, but you did it.
Okay, fine.
Must have been handcuffs and 2 MPs to get her down the aisle.
We had dinner in Jupiter, Florida. Had a very nice time. Coach and I were friends, and I wanted Taylor to finally spend some time with Coach. We went out to dinner in Jupiter, Florida. The next morning, the phone rings, and he says, "Parcells here," which is the way he's always begun phone conversations. And I thought, oh, well, he's just, this is that soft, cuddly side of Coach Parcells, and he's calling to tell me what a good time he had last night. And this is what I hear: "You over-married," and he hung up. And Taylor Lupica has been dining out on that for the last.
Sure, she should. She's got her place in heaven. She's got an A-pass in there. She's serving her purgatory here on earth. So she's got an A-pass in. Give her my best.
Coach, if I had one team to have somebody coach or one game to win, it would be you. It has been, you know how much fun I've had knowing you all these years. I'm glad Bob Knight called me that day. And this, as usual, I'm a lot smarter at the end of one of these conversations than I was at the beginning. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Mike. You're very kind, and I enjoyed being with you.
The Mike Lupica Podcast is produced and distributed by Compass Media Networks in conjunction with Hiltzik Creative. For iPhone users, go to the podcast app and search the Mike Lupica Podcast. Click on the Mike Lupica Podcast icon and subscribe. For non-iPhone users, you can listen on Google Play Music, TuneIn, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast platform.